I literally woke up that day and went, I'm the loneliest man in the world to my dad. I don't sit safe, Chris. So, I want to live by my decisions, and I picked up the same methodology and we got promoted. So, pro football's miles away from schools, mate. Football's one of the most unprofessional places I've ever been in. Lads, disappointed with the defeat at the weekend. Brush yourselves off. But my goodness, ... right now, do we need an edge? A couple of players got back and went, what's an edge? Straight away. I do struggle, mate. I do struggle, but I'm only human at the end of the day, ain't I? So, I need to be vulnerable. He can't even say hello to me. Who are you thinking you're more important than me? I've got to be ridiculously loyal to him, but I've got to be ridiculously loyal to the players. Yeah. And believe it or not, my job is really delicate.
Yeah. Hello and welcome back to my channel, and today's guest is Steve Sallis. So Steve is a professional mindset and leadership coach with a very interesting background. So Steve actually started out in education as a teacher, and after doing that he has now set up his own business and works with a mix of students, teachers, high performing business leaders and also professional footballers around their mindset. So this was a very interesting conversation where Steve went into the intricacies of how he would work with different players at different clubs, but also the coaches, and how he has to balance the professional and the personal lives of players, and how his role is a very delicate role within the coaching setup. So before we get into the conversation, I want to quickly remind you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and also give the video a thumbs up if you do enjoy this type of content. So without further ado, let's get into the conversation with Steve Sallis. Steve, welcome to the channel. How are you doing today?
Very well, Chris. Very well, mate. Looking forward to chatting. We've already chatted off air already about our connections and how small the world is. So yeah, looking forward to catching up, bud.
Definitely. In sport, it always is the case that you know someone that knows someone, definitely, for sure. So, Steve, for those that don't know who you are, what I'd like to do is pass it over to the guests. So if you want to give a quick overview, brief overview, who you are, what you do, and what's kind of led you to this point at this stage.
Well, the latest thing I say, Chris, is that I'm a storyteller, really, mate. Just tell stories of my experiences of inner London failing comprehensive schools, where I worked in 17 years as a PE teacher, middle leader, then a vice principal. And then I went to Millwall, was one of the academy managers and headed up the welfare department and education. And then I had great opportunity to work for the England national setup for 3 seasons. And then I basically fluked myself into a business. And yeah, I say fluked because it was the most organic thing in the world. Had England for 60, 70 days a year and had to find 300 days work. So obviously now founder of my business, which is called solutionsmindset.com, which is basically helping businesses, elite athletes, football clubs and education establishments with high performing lives, really, mate.
Perfect. So you've also got a book which we're going to come to as well. So you've kind of done a lot. You've started off. You played as well, didn't you? Did you play it non-league as well? Did you play?
Yeah, terribly. Yeah, that's why I don't. That's why I don't mention it. Yeah, so I was. No, I will tell the truth. I played at Brighton, mate. Got spotted as an 11-year-old. Obviously, you worked there, and then went all the way through the system. Then got released at 19. So that seems such a long time ago. So I did. No, I did actually play non-league till I was 34. Ended at a club called Fisher, in South London Football Club, and yeah, hacked about in non-league. Found non-league very difficult. Pitches, style of play. I come out of academy football, was the typical clean academy kid that probably passed sideways and looked at keeping the ball, and then you get into the rough and tumble of the Southern League and the Isthmian League where you get beaten up. So no, I've also managed in non-league with. I was assistant manager to Jimmy Bullard, while you remind me. So yeah, I was at Leverhead for 4 seasons. So yeah, some good stories, mate.
Well, what was that like? Did you know Jimmy before that? How did that come about?
Yeah, we met playing non-league against each other when I was in my first year moving to London from leaving Brighton. So when I left Brighton, I went to uni at Greenwich. I was the only footballer of my generation to have any A levels. So we kicked the shit out of each other in a game one day, and we sort of had a beer in the end, and then we've stayed in touch ever since. And then 20 years later, he gets a job at Leverhead and calls me and goes, "Sallis, I need your help." So it was all very organic, and as the saying goes, Chris, Jimmy managed the team and I managed Jimmy, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can imagine that. So, just in general, then, Steve, can you give us an overview? Just so you know, mindset for me is not really something that I know too much about, but I'm curious to learn more. So, what is mindset and why is it important, Steve?
Well, I mean, it's really teaching and learning, if I'm honest. I mean, teaching and learning is not very glamorous. It's a name, and education, I say, is not very glamorous. I'll sidetrack slightly, mate. My master's degree was in educational psychology, so I can't call myself a sports psych. But if you look through the history of methodology, whether it be business psychology, human psychology, educational psychology, or sports psychology, they're pretty much all quite blended and quite similar. So, um, all I am really is a guy trying to solve problems for people, which again, when you're ahead a year in a school, and I'm not exaggerating, you've got 100 kids a day knocking on your door trying to find solutions to problems.
Mm.
Hence my business being called Solutions Mindset, because I was so fed up with people coming to my office with problems. So yeah, I think my skills, just so we're clear for the listener, are all based around educational concepts.
Yeah. So I mean,
So yeah, I've put the mindset thing in there really just to try and hit a gap in the football market, to be honest.
yeah. Okay, so let's start with the teaching then, and that the earlier days in Steve. So why teacher? Did you come from normally like were your parents teachers or something? Like did you come from a teaching background, and what kind of led you to that path initially?
Well, after release, it was always my dad was pretty old school and always said, "Son, you're probably going to get released." Most dads go, "You're probably going to be in the Premier League," but my dad was a plumber from Brighton.
Right.
My mum was a housewife. My big brother is now a head teacher, but he also went to Greenwich Uni, so I pretty much followed him, if I'm honest. Sports mad, so I was sort of the next best thing from not being a pro footballer was going to uni and doing a degree in PE. So I didn't just play football; I played all sports as a kid. I had tennis lessons from 4 years old, and squash lessons, and badminton lessons, and golf lessons, and I'm just a lover of sport, really. So that was how that evolved, and yeah, just got to uni and met a load of lads. You could only get into our uni, Chris, if you failed your A levels. That was the joke in Freshers Week. Everyone's getting pissed up and, did you fail your A levels? Yes, me too. So we were a very working class uni, put it that way. And I met my best mates there. So they're all head teachers these days. We don't take ourselves too seriously, Chris. We've got a WhatsApp group, all the head teachers called dickheads. So I believe is to be a great educator, you've got to make fun of yourself, haven't you? And also a great colleague as well. If we look at that later on in the pod.
Yeah, definitely. So that was obviously in London schools. You said you're kind of teaching there. You did some kind of things at universities as well, as you mentioned. But then we'll kind of get into the role at Millwall because that's kind of where is that kind of the first way you've started applying your knowledge within a football club, Steve? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, the simple way to put it is I've worked in four failing schools, so all in special measures. So you had to be unbelievably strategic, unbelievably operational on the ground floor, unbelievable with your impact, and then proving your impact with evidence.
Yeah,
If we look at the EPPP and all those processes around impact and evidence, that was a huge part of my skill set. I've pretty much picked up all my school strategic methodology, Chris, and donked it straight into pro football. So, if I'm honest with you, like I said before, pro football's miles away from schools, mate.
yeah,
Like miles away. It claims it's not, and it calls itself professional, but football is one of the most unprofessional places I've ever been in.
mm,
So it wasn't really that difficult, to be honest, to add value. The only thing I had a challenge was what I call a third, and a third. A third of people on my bus early doors, a third are in the middle that I've got to try and influence, and a third of people, like most businesses, are closed-minded, fixed, and
yeah.
we don't do it like that. We do it like this. So they were probably my biggest battles rather than the actual strategic stuff.
Yeah. So that was the role there then, Steve, Academy Management, Head of Education and Player Welfare. So for those that, on the outside, what does that entail? What are you doing there on a day to day?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I'll start with a Wednesday. I was teaching the scholars. Obviously, the great thing about my background was I was an ex-player and I could do the education. So I
Mm,
could really blend my work in. So I'd take the scholars to college on Wednesday, do their A levels and BTEC. I'd have to plan the mark the work, do all the MVQs, plan it and mark it. And then really sorting all the digs out for all the 23s players, 18s players, linking with the families, which is again all standard stuff we did in school. So
yeah.
nothing was really that different. Monitor all the 9s to 16s. I'm sounding like I need a medal here, but I'm going to give you an example of why football's absolutely a flawed system.
Mm,
You've got Charlton down the road, and this is not anti-Charlton, but this is about budgets. They're a Cat 2 academy. We're a Cat 2 academy.
yeah.
For your listeners that know that, and then they've got four full-time education people, and I've got me,
Yeah.
and we're graded in the same boat.
Yeah.
And they had a full-time 9 to 16 education officer. And Chris, I did all of that myself.
Yeah.
as well as everything else I've just described. So it got to the stage where I was saying to the LFE, I'm actually up at the LFE tomorrow doing some wellbeing training with all the staff up there. It got to the stage where I'm telling the LFE, who are wonderful people, let me add, they're the best people in football by a mile, really, really good people. And I'm saying to them that you're giving us more work but less resources.
Mm.
And that really accelerated, Chris, from 2014 to 2017. I worked there for 4 seasons. And in the end, now we've got player care officers.
Yeah.
So we've now got a whole person there. So I wasn't wrong in having a moan about it because now we've got full-time people doing all those roles, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think that sometimes I'm probably a bit marmite and tell people the truth, and not in a rude way. The truth has now come to fruition because there's now more people in those areas doing those roles, which is I was doing all of it. And I'll
Yeah.
be honest with you, there was a lot of burnt out staff, and
Yeah.
I don't mean me, I mean throughout the clubs at that stage.
Yeah. I mean, it seemed like, just like looking from the outside, that job was kind of perfectly suited to you, from your football background, your education background, and kind of putting that into, bringing those kind of skill sets together. So I'm just curious, from a player's perspective, Steve, from an academy player, so a young player, what were some challenges that you kind of found that academy players will deal with? Like, what are some popular kind of challenges and maybe things that they will have to put up with through their early career?
Um, God, good question, mate. I think I'm going to work backwards. I was at Millwall 4.5 seasons, and talk about early intervention in education.
Hmm.
We were inheriting difficult people, and we get them on a scholarship program. And guess what? They're difficult people. They're not very much into education, even though education's 2 days of five of
Yeah.
their week, two
Yeah.
days of six. So again, the solution is let's get them into education. So the under 12s that I inherited when I joined, when they became scholars, I'm really proud of this. 9 out of the 10 that we signed got 11 A to C GCSEs.
Hmm.
9 out of 10,
Yeah. Nice.
which is unheard of.
Hmm.
So that's my legacy really is playing the long game with, if you're rude at school, you're not coming on day release. Like common sense things, nothing maverick, nothing genius, just very common sense.
Yeah.
Making more phone calls, letters to the parents, educating them on the club's policies and processes, so there's no grey areas with disagreements and misalignment. Making sure that we're upskilling the players on behavioural strategies, learning to learn strategies, making sure day releases is based around the attainment of day releases, sorry, the attendance of day releases based around do you make progress at school,
Hmm.
right? So not are you an A-star student, do you make progress?
Yeah.
Any difficult kids simply weren't allowed to come out. And I know definitely that's not the case at other clubs.
Yeah.
So I had to have buy-in from staff to make those decisions. I've met players, Chris, that were deemed as thick, right? They're thick, but actually they're autistic.
Hmm.
How sad is that? So I've come across loads of autistic kids from my teaching experience, and I've come across autistic first team players now, right? Well, I can spot them just from my teaching radar, and
Yeah.
they're still labelled as thick, so that's quite sad. So when you ask the question, I've had kids whose parents, are really, really poverty stricken. We've got kids, welfare issues with kids not being able to get home in South London, having to get free buses to come back from training. And then I've got other parents coming in a 4x4 Mercedes. So,
Hmm.
you know what it's like. You get a very eclectic mix of people. But if I'm honest, mate, it was no different to the work I did in schools. It was probably, to be honest, 10 times easier. In
Yeah.
an academy, you got 140 kids, and in school, I had 2,500. So,
Yeah.
it's not a lot of comparison, really.
Yeah. And in terms of then the kind of, I would imagine this is a thing, but maybe, get your opinion on it, like pressure from parents. So whether this be in an academy setting or just on a Sunday morning, like, some parents I'm sure can be quite, they want the young son or whatever to become a professional footballer. How do you feel that kind of pressure impacts the players at an early age?
And generally, parents either help or hinder, don't they? And I'd probably say 80-20 hinder.
Yeah.
80% hinder and 20 help. I think in my book I call it the wrong type of love. Like they're loving their kids, but just loving their kids in totally the wrong way.
Yeah.
And I don't want to lambast every parent, but you've seen, my cousin, right, who's a father of a 14-year-old son, gives me fables of Sunday morning football in Brighton. And he
Mm.
says another Sunday league manager got sent off. Like ref got sorted in Eastbourne last week.
Yeah.
So I don't think those parents, by the way, pro rata across society are any different. They just know that if they did an academy sitting, they're going to get booted out.
Yeah.
Right? But those parents are still existing in academy football.
Mm.
You've just got the clout of them having to shut their mouth. But very, very difficult, mate. Parents generally are very uneducated about how to bring up their children.
Mm.
I know that's quite a controversial statement, but if you look at the educational psychology, if you look at Abraham Maslow, hierarchy of needs, if you look at Howard Gardner, multiple intelligences, if you look up at how we build psychological safety for children, they need to be reading these books, not spending £1,000 on an Xbox.
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. So you mentioned there 4.5 seasons at Millwall. You've then kind of is that point you've set up the business? Is that the point when you?
Yeah, good question, mate. I blended. I left in the July 2017, and I literally woke up in April and said I'm going to build a website. So I was working my way out, and then I knew I had the England job in August of that year. So then I had a month's pay, and then pretty much September 2017 was the day I had no salary for the first time in 21 years. So that was the day I shit myself, mate, because anyone that builds a business, you're like, oh my God, like this is like, I literally woke up that day and went, I'm the loneliest man in the world to my dad.
Yeah.
It was a very surreal day.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So, just kind of an overview then of what you've obviously we've touched on some things that you do, but with the business now, you're working with professional teams, professional players. You're working with schools still. You're working with businesses as well, and kind of business people. Is that
Yeah, so
you?
I got bundles of stuff. I work for some big corporates, Cooch Bank, Barclays, Tarmac Road Builders, all around high performing teams. So I've got some. I mean, some of my. I've got a chapter in my book, Chris, called "The Singer, Not the Song." All right, you'll like this. The song's my content, and the
Mhm.
singer is the person that brings it to life. And someone said to me the other day, "Oh, Steve, he's a motivational speaker." And I'm like, as in the singer. I find that's quite insulting. And if you actually look at my content, my theoretical content, and the key to theory, Chris, as you know, is applying this to players and people and staff can eat it for breakfast. But I think I think my keynote speaking comes around having the singer, but also having the song.
Yeah,
Well, I've got some seriously good methodology, which is research based, which is scientific around, the objectivity of the science of high performance. So I've got some powerful content. I think that's, when people see my business is flying, I believe because of my content, not because I'm a nice fella.
yeah. Well, you've got
Do you know what I mean?
yeah, you've got it
I
to back
think so,
it.
mate. I do. I'm not saying, motivational speaker. It's not hard to be kind and positive, is it?
Mm.
Like, that's like everyday behaviour. But my content, I've just been working with the British Olympic team up in Scotland, and I expected them to know a lot of my content, and not in a weird way. They didn't, and I've got them for 3 days, so that makes me feel $1 million because I know for 3 days I'm giving them fresh content, which is really taken from my MA, which was the place that took me to a new level in terms of theory. And sometimes uni, is a bit, not relative,
Yeah.
but the key to theory of any degree is applying it to the real world, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I mean, yeah, I'm just seeing there you've got a Northampton top you've got on there, isn't it, Steve? So we'll kind of get to the. It is Northampton, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah, it
yes.
is. Yeah, I
I'm kissed
thought.
about at the moment. I'm not actually there anymore, but I'm just wearing it today because I'm due to speak to the CEO tomorrow about going back. But we'll,
Oh,
we'll
okay.
we'll
Well,
cross that bridge later. Yeah,
definitely. Well, it leads us on to kind of the football clubs that you've kind of done some work with. So, and there may be more than this, but this is what I've kind of obviously you've got the Northampton there. We've got you did some work with Wimbledon, and also did you do some work with Cardiff as well?
yeah, correct. Yeah,
Yeah. So how do them roles come about, Steve? Really, and then also what are you kind of doing in them clubs? Are you consulting with them? Are you going in a couple of days a week, or how does that kind of look?
yeah, mate. He's pretty much nailed it. I mean, I don't work in full-time football, Chris, because I don't want to.
Hmm.
I've got my why is much bigger than pro football. So the school gigs, I've got a project called My Future Self. I've got my business stuff, and then I've got pro football. So the pro football first team stuff comes around with Robbo, who was a legend at Wimbledon for many years. Mark Robinson, who's now Chelsea 23's manager, called me when he got the job at Wimbledon and said, Sallis, can you come and give me a hand?
Hmm.
So when it's a bit lastminute.com as football is, I said to him, look, I'll give you as many days as I can because he's a mate, right? And people know when I'm on the loyalty bus, I'll do anything for anyone. So I was pretty much doing. I agreed with him at the time to do all first team home games and a day a week in the training ground,
Yeah.
where I would just help him and the staff and the players with, yeah, again with my methodology. We then were in the shit and we were about to get relegated, and we had 14 games. Anyway, we stayed up. We went on a great run, and I will share this for your listeners. In my book, I've got a chapter called a reg,
Mhm.
right? Players that are rounded, good human beings, right, but have got an edge,
Okay.
and that's what we want. And in life, your kid is going to need an edge, right? And they need to be a good person. Anyway, we were going 14 games, no wins, 11 games, no wins. We're 5 points clear of safety, four go down in League One.
Yeah.
And we lost again over Easter. And we were really clear as staff to keep our shit together, never too high, never too low. But then there's now like 8 games left, Chris. So I called Robbo and I said, Robbo, I'm just going to put something in the WhatsApp group. And he always said, look, put what you want in the WhatsApp group. I don't care. All right.
Yeah.
Just let me get on with my job. And I said to the lads, all the players, I said, lads, disappointed with the defeat at the weekend. Brush yourselves off. But my goodness, dot, 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 right now, do we need an edge?
Yeah.
A couple of players got back and went, what's an edge?
Yeah.
Straight away. And I said, best thing for you lot to do is you decide what you think an edge means, which is me all over, right? And work it out. Anyway, Robbo didn't call me again. This is why I love him. On Thursday, because this was the day off on the Wednesday, on the Thursday, he brought edge to life.
Yeah.
Players all created a methodology of what they thought an edge was from my idea in the WhatsApp group. They basically smashed the shit out of each other in training for the next 2 hours. Genuinely, had two black eyes, blah, blah. And they went to Accrington on the Saturday and won 4-1.
Nice.
And we hadn't won in six. We then played Oxford at home, 1-3-0, who were in the playoffs at the time. We then played Swindon, 1-4-1. And then we got a draw because it was COVID. We got a draw at Ipswich, 0-0, I think. We had to play them twice.
Mm.
And then we got a draw. So we got 4 wins and a draw out in the next 5 games
Nice.
from the edge. So I have to share this story that, where I love my relationship with players. They were putting pictures of WhatsApp with me from my Five Live picture, and they changed my book into a aftershave, and they had edge,
Yeah.
So the humour from my ideas, I'm pretty proud of it because this silly little stuff I took from my methodology is, trust me, I'm not the person playing.
Yeah.
But I know that idea and the feedback that I get from the players, and they go, Sallis, that was the light bulb to wake us up,
Mm.
to get to training, to smash the shit out of each other, to go to Accrington and beat them 4-1,
Yeah.
to then win the next game 4-1, to then win the next game 3-0. And by the way, we were third bottom at the time, so
Mm.
it almost came out of nowhere. So anyway, yeah, we got sacked a year later. I went to Cardiff. Steve Morrison, who I worked with at Millwall, they were in the shit, so we did well to keep them up. And then we got sacked from there. And then John Brady, who's a mate of mine as well, called me and said, "Can I now pick up this methodology for promotion charge?"
Yeah.
And so, practice what you preach. I don't sit safe, Chris. So, I want to live by my decisions, and I picked up the same methodology and we got promoted. So, I've had a pretty good run of it. And obviously, I'm a small cog in the wheel,
Mm.
but these managers are bringing me in for my methodology, which I guarantee works if given the time to apply and implement to players.
Yeah. Definitely. So two survivals and one promotion. So perfect. I've heard you speak about super strengths before, Steve. So can you just kind of give us a bit of an indication of what you mean by super strengths?
Yeah, there's plenty of people in the world just saying you can't do this and you can't do this. I've got a chapter in my book called "He Can't Do That,"
Mm.
and all my coaching experiences of managers and players go, "He can't do that." Well, you didn't sign in for that. You signed in for this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So super strength is just, if we link it to business, if me and you work together, Chris, I'd say to you, look, what are you 10 out of 10 at?
Mm.
And you go, I'm 10 out of 10 at this, I'm 10 out of 10 at this, and 10 out of 10 at this. Okay, and I go, what are you 5 out of 10 at? And you go, oh, wow. Not just building a business the other way around, like looking at what people can do, not what they can't do.
Yeah.
And just, yeah, common sense approach to a business. And I get, listen, if you're designing rocket launchers, you're going to need a high level of caliber. In my book, I talk about character or caliber. Being a great person, is hugely important. But in certain niches and industries, you need high caliber, don't you?
Yeah.
And I think if we look at it, my job in my caliber, me being a nice fella and say try harder is not going to get results. So, hopefully your listeners can hear from me today that I can recite this stuff like it's ingrained in me, but it really is.
Mm.
And my job is not to tell people what to do. My job is to make people think. Because Chris, in 2023, who wants to be told what to do?
Very true. Very true. So I've got a few questions around, Steve, kind of the relationship with players when you're in these clubs. So firstly, kind of how do you, and maybe this is obviously different between different players and different clubs, but how are the players receptive to somebody like yourself in that kind of mindset? Kind of do you find that that's kind of changing over time? And do you find there's a lot of pushback? People are open to it. How do you kind of see that?
Yeah, I won't give too much away, but on my first session, I do with all the players, I've pretty much got them in the pocket after 45 minutes anyway.
Yeah.
But once they know that I've worked for England and obviously my experiences with Jude Bellingham and Eze and, Jacob Ramsey, Aaron Ramsey and, loads of other lads that play for England, I think I'm pretty much in the mix. But I've still got to behave like I care. I mean,
Mm.
I will wiki every player
Yeah.
and I will put that in my diary and I will get their birthdays and I will get where they're born and I will go through all of their player history just
Mm.
to see if there's someone about someone about someone. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, Chris. Half the lads in London, I know they're PE teachers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So any player that's been in the M25, I go, where'd you go to school?
Yeah.
And they go, I go, oh, Mr. Jones. They go, what? Hey, I went to uni with him.
Yeah. That's
Crazy, mate.
yeah. And then that's
But
reported
I'll
straight
do,
away, isn't it?
yeah, I will do, Chris, I will do anything to get a player on my side.
Mm.
And sometimes, Chris, I keep saying this, Ali Koike at Northampton Town, he's got the same birthday as me.
Yeah.
So I go, you're Ali Koike? And he goes, yeah. I go, August 22nd. He goes, yeah. But, like, just, small margins make a big difference, mate.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, just getting to know players' names very quick, like,
Yeah.
just common sense things, mate, honestly.
Mm. And what about the kind of when you're, let's say you're speaking to a player, you're working with a player kind of on a one-to-one, how much of that is kind of split between, because obviously you've got the professional life of the player, but then also you've got the stuff that's going on in the personal life as well. So what's the kind of balance that you kind of speak about and deal with
Yeah.
both of those areas?
You've probably answered the question already, mate. Well done. Around professional, personal, professional affects personal and personal affects professional. So if
Mm.
I had a pound for players in their blind spots, not realising that they're playing shit because something's going on in their personal life.
Yeah.
But at the same time, with the pros, we look at metrics, got loads of data. You'll love this. So I get them to create spreadsheets, some distance covered, high intensity sprints, for the final third players, touches in the penalty box, touches in the final third. And anyway, I ain't doing it. I'm busy enough. They do it. Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean they do it? Like, not in a rude way. The analysis departments and the football clubs have got this majorly wrong. You're working really hard, right? And the players are doing fuck all,
Mm.
right? And I know about behavioural science. You lot work harder, they work less. That's not how elite athletes should work.
Yeah.
The problem that we've got is that managers, leaders, also haven't got a clue how hard you lot work as analysts. Haven't got a clue.
That's very true. Yeah.
Right? And you're creating all of this absolute gold for
Mm.
players, because I'm a big data man, by the way, Chris.
Mm.
Gold for players to stack it off anyway.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to give you lots of credit, because the analysis departments, when I go into clubs, are also people that I really try and look after. Everyone's got to know where their line of pride is, right? And I ain't having any pro after me driving 4 hours, right, telling me I'm going to do this when actually you can't even commit to watching your own clips.
Yeah.
It is embarrassing,
Yeah.
right? And when I say football is unprofessional, it is miles away.
Yeah. I mean, a
Because
lot.
you got yeah, sorry to interrupt. You've got all these analysts doing all this work for players can't even be asked to watching your own clips.
Yeah, I know a lot of analysts will resonate with that. Definitely,
Yeah,
that is definitely the case. I mean, in terms of then dealing with players, because one thing you might, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think to deal with the kind of and work on your mental side, it's easy to kind of think that it's something you just do when you're struggling. In terms of, let's say the team's not doing well, okay, we'll get someone in and get Steve in to help us out. But how important is it that it's a continual process rather than just a quick fix because you need to get some better results? Just kind of an
yeah.
ongoing thing.
It's a good question. I think it depends on situations and context. So when I said to you earlier about mindset being teaching and learning,
Yeah.
you know, players being able to recite chimp paradox, the reg, improved character caliber, four corner model. Chris, we've got Premier League players. You say, what's the four corner model? They don't know, mate.
Mm. Mm.
So
Yeah.
then my work comes in, right? I said on Luke Staten's podcast last week, do people think I'm Paul McKenna?
Yeah.
Like, am I going to magic people's minds? Chris, the four corners, tech, tack, fizz, and psych are so blended, it's frightening.
Yeah.
Let me apply this for you. If you've got a player that's technically more efficient, right, they are going to control the ball more and pass the ball better.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is going to make them feel good,
Yeah.
right? They will make less errors because they're more technically efficient. So when people see my work in silo, it's impossible. And I think my ability as a player, like, is huge because having not that I was a good player, but having played till I was 34 enabled me to truly understand the game.
Mm.
Right? Someone said to me, "Can you improve a concentration for my player?" I said, "What? Yeah, tell him to get fitter."
Yeah.
Like the four corners is hugely blended. So I think my book is mainly about self-awareness, Chris.
Hmm.
We have to make players more self-aware. We have to make players do more rag ratings, red, amber, greens. What your super strengths, your greens, what your ambers, areas of development, reds, what your serious weaknesses. Around that comes in a match day, show your strengths and hide your weaknesses. Right, but Monday to Friday, build on your weaknesses.
Mm. Yeah.
So 1% here, 1% here, 1% here. I've got another metaphor called the seesaw. Right, when I work with players that are really gifted but don't want to run around, right, really good technicians, League Two, League One, Championship players, right, really good technicians but aren't natural runners.
Mm.
I call it the seesaw, and what that means is these technicians, if they get their foot in early and they get a regain early, right, and they see themselves as a regainer, I don't have to tell good players, Chris, how to play football.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if they can get the out of position stuff sorted out, as in the bottom end of the seesaw is weighted towards out of position,
Yeah.
right? Because what I see is loads of players that are really gifted that don't have good games on the ball or off the ball because they don't get the out of position stuff right to get them going.
Yeah. 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 Definitely.
And often that now managers aren't carrying anyone out of possession. So yeah, I mean that goes back to behaviour conditioning. Here we go. I'll give you another nugget. We are conditioning young people to behave. Let's look at behaviour not as in their personality, as in them conditioned to run or not run by
Yeah.
what we do in academy football.
Yeah.
And then they get to 18 and they don't really run, but they're a good player. They
Mm.
get a pro and they're a good player, but they still don't run. And part of that as well, to get all technical, is the size of the pitches in academy football.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the kids are only training on a quarter of a pitch.
Mm. Yeah. That's
So we
right.
do loads of small sideds, but then they're not doing any distances work early in their life.
Mm.
So they're not used to sprinting.
Yeah. Yeah, very true. I mean, what's the balance between if you're working with the players, Steve, in terms of and working with them, getting the mindset right between preparation, so like before the game, and then reflection after the game? How does that kind of how do you work with both of them?
That's a brilliant question. That is. So post-match reflections with my one-to-ones, all the players have got to do what went well and even better if in the four corners, tech, tack, fizz and psych.
Yeah.
I've got 13-year-olds doing that now, mate.
Yeah.
Loads of parents who employ me now for their academy kids. Pre-game on match days about no noise at all. I don't say hardly anything to the lads.
Yeah.
Normally, I used to chat to Luke McCormack at Wimbledon about Oasis half the time at 5-3.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
Getting
mean,
kind of that's the point where they probably need to be relaxed and ready to perform, I suppose.
yeah. No noise on match day, mate. And then the Monday to Friday was just a lot of the methodology that I've used. And also, Robbo would say to me at Wimbledon that we got a session booked in for Thursday, but I don't think it's quite right. And I'd always say, look, I agree.
Yeah.
Today's not the day to listen to another story from me. So, very flexible around when, where, and why I come in and put interventions in for players.
Yeah. And has there ever been any examples, Steve? Let's say you're obviously close to you're part of the coaching staff pretty much. So if you're working with a player and you're kind of getting bad signals that they're not, they're currently not in a good place or they're not, not right, is that something you would have to then relay to the manager and kind of maybe spend some more time specifically with that player?
Yes, trust again, isn't it, mate?
Mm.
If it's a serious safeguarding issue, and I mean safeguarding for an adult player, I would tell the player that I'm immediately going to the club doctor.
Yeah.
That's what I would do there. But if it's just, an ad lib conversation, I think the unique thing that I have, and this is where John Brady gets this more than anyone, is that I've got to be ridiculously loyal to him, but I've got to be ridiculously loyal to the players.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, my job is really delicate.
Yeah.
And John says, "Oh, Sallis, you always play it down, you know, how hard your job is." But I've really got to build the trust of everyone without being a snake to the manager.
Yeah.
But the lads laugh because they know I'm not a yes man to the gaffer either.
Mm.
So they know that I'll tell the gaffer, you know, that I don't agree with him, not in front of people, but you know, behind
Yeah.
closed doors. So the players know that it's just about me and them in that moment,
Mm.
and I have to make a executive decision based on our conversation about whether that goes back to John, you know. And half the time, Chris, if I'm honest, it doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think like obviously the role of a manager has changed obviously a lot over the years, and now you're seeing the more of head coaches, and they've got people like yourself, who've got people that have got each different speciality to help them, manage a team in in general. So, what would you say the difference between a manager and a leader is, Steve?
Oh, I'm writing that in my new book. I should be able to answer that easily, but I'm going to struggle. Like managers, yeah, well, in fact, I probably can answer it with a bit of thinking time. A manager's job is almost backwards, isn't it? Manage the situation,
Mm,
you know, manage what's just happened. But a leader is just forward thinking, visionary, you know. If you actually look at the difference in the words and the meaning, manage someone, you know, suppress someone,
yeah,
you know, control someone, maybe.
yeah,
But lead is much more accountability on the players, isn't it?
mm, yeah,
But
yeah,
then that's education. The key to this, Chris, again, is education around what that looks like for the players.
yeah,
So we warn the players when a new season came in, and listen to our language here. If you choose to ignore the stuff,
mm,
and it chucks it straight back at the player,
yeah,
that they have a choice to make about how they behave.
yeah,
Right. And you never hear managers say that. Right. So that's the type of methodology I use for staff around the behavioural psychology stuff. If you choose to ignore us,
yeah,
if you choose to be late,
yeah. Fair point. Yeah, definitely.
if you choose to be rude to the physiotherapist,
Mm, yeah,
you know, if you choose to be rude to the analyst.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I want to ask you about kind of you then, Steve. If if I'm a player and you're coming in and you're trying to improve my mindset, you've got to be on. I would imagine you've got to be kind of 10 out of 10 every time. So, what about you? And how do you have someone that you kind of speak to and work with personally for you, and how do you kind of manage that having to? It's almost like a pressure for you. I would imagine that you've got to be
Yeah,
on.
it is. No, it is, mate. I mean, I'm flued up and cold up at the moment, and here's the irony, mate. I'm going up to the Football League staff tomorrow in Preston on the train on a 3 hour journey
Mm.
on well-being, and
Yeah.
I'm the one with a cold.
Mm.
So yeah, I do. It's a good question again. I do struggle, mate. I
Mm.
do struggle, but I'm only human at the end of the day, ain't I? So
Yeah.
you know, I need to be vulnerable, and I need to, you know, be real.
Yeah.
You know, I don't. People know me well. Like I'm a very alpha male guy, but I'm a very sensitive man as well. I'm not. You know, you get in your 40s, Chris. It gets a bit boring to pretend that you're someone that you're not.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you know, I'm very, very. You know, I have no issue with being vulnerable.
Mm, definitely, definitely. One thing I wanted to ask you about, Steve, was the work you do with the SFA. So that's kind of how that's probably how I first kind of come about you. Because again, we do some work with the SFA, and I don't know, you probably know Dougie as well. That's kind of
Yeah,
I had Dougie on
yeah,
this channel before for a video, and I think Dougie's mentioned me before in terms of they get you in and you deliver some stuff, but I don't know what that is. So if you can just kind of give us an overview of what you do with the SFA and why I feel that's important and how that helps them.
yeah. On the record, they've been unbelievable to me, mate. Well happy,
Mm,
well happy with them. Greg, Doogie, Richie,
yeah,
even Tracy and Marion in the office, just amazing people, right?
yeah,
Um, just yeah, just been incredibly loyal to me. So what do I do? Spit it out. I did the C license last night, so I do UEFA psychology C license. The B license I do leadership, but I do some teaching and learning stuff as well. A license I do leadership, and then the pro license I do critical thinking and leadership.
yeah,
So yeah, mate, I got to, again singing not the song. Some of the song stuff I've got is pure power.
Mm.
So again, all based around critical thinking. They got me in originally to challenge their federation on being better called critical thinkers as staff.
Yeah.
So I also lead on all the staff training for the coach education team.
Yeah.
So that's why I know them quite intimately now. So yeah, they've become friends really.
Mm.
So they're bloody hard now because they've heard my stories for 4 years. So I have to keep creating new content, mate.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the names you mentioned, I know them all very well as well. So yeah, definitely can attest to that. So I think it's definitely important though that, these coaches coming through the licenses, there's a lot more to, being a successful coach than just your football and tactical knowledge, obviously, as you kind of attest to. So definitely agree with that. So let's kind of go. So you mentioned, obviously you've got a book, you've dropped in there, you're kind of working on another book then, Steve. So what's the next book about, and when can we expect this?
Well, I was meant to be out this Christmas, but I've had too much to do really. So yeah, you ready for the title, mate? I mean, I haven't revealed this on any
Oh, here we
social, so
go.
you're
Exclusive.
gonna get a preview, an exclusive. The
Nice.
title of the book is going to be called "How Not to Be a Leadership Dickhead,"
Nice. Yeah, nice.
yeah, and how to be a high performing leader. And it's something I've been very passionate about for many years. It's going to be 25 years of my intellectual property and experiences
Mm,
of how to lead. And there are so many bad bosses in the world,
mm,
so many. And I want young people to read it and go, I've got a narcissist boss, or my boss a sociopath, or
mm.
my boss doesn't listen to me, or my boss hasn't got a door that's ever open, and my boss, isn't very good.
Yeah, yeah.
But obviously, I've had to put a catchy title to flog some copy. So I'm hoping yeah, I'm really confident about this product. This product it's been years in the making.
Mm, nice. Nice.
So yeah, it's basically about all the good stuff too.
Mm. So how long have you,
How to lead well.
how long have you been working on that one then? I'm just curious how big of a task writing a book even is. Obviously, you've done one already.
5 years, mate.
Yeah.
5 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Basically, instead of doing a PhD, I just wrote 2 books.
Yeah, yeah. Nice.
Because I'll tell you why, because it's more fun.
Yeah, yeah. Mm,
Genuine truth. Like it's much more fun for me to write about what I want to write about rather than like uni bullshit.
mm. Yeah.
And because I'm living it as well, I'm living leadership. I'm able to really give applied examples.
Mm, yeah. Perfect. Nice. I also wanted to ask you about you. You appear, I only found this out from your website, Steve. So you're in the Sunderland Till I Die Netflix. So I'm a Sunderland fan, so I watched it. I dare watch it again. I don't really want to watch it again, to be perfectly honest, because it's not good viewing for a Sunderland fan. But you were in there. I didn't see you at the time. I didn't realise at the time when I watched that. So what were you doing as part of that? Kind of who were you working with at that point?
Yeah, but I had dark hair then, mate. I'm grey now. You know what I mean? So I got that job through a guy called Peter Smith, that is an agent with Rio Ferdinand called New Era Global Sports, based in London.
Hmm.
Smithy used to play for Brighton
Yeah,
many years ago, so I knew him from my connections from there. And when I started my business, as you do, you're making phone calls and who gets you in. And anyway, Johnny Williams, who is the Sunderland player, is always been represented by New Era.
yeah,
So don't pretend that I was on it on anything significant on that documentary, Chris. I was on there for about 45 seconds.
yeah,
But anyway, I went up there and I was due to see Johnny and Brendan Galloway,
yeah.
and who was on loan from Everton at the time. And anyway, the Netflix documentary was there, and they said, "Do you want to be filmed?" And I said, "Look, it's not up to me; it's up to Johnny."
Hmm.
So Johnny was up for it, and then they filmed our session.
Yeah. Nice.
Very, very simple, mate. So anyway, not in a rude way. I'm over the moon. Sunderland are doing well because I've got good mates. Dodgy's a good mate of mine.
Yeah.
Stuart English is a good mate of mine, and I'm over the moon that Sunderland is doing well. But at that time, it was a shambles.
Oh yeah, it was terrible. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
terrible.
I'm still waiting for the CEO to say hello to me, Chris.
Really. Yeah, that, well,
This
you've
is my
got,
point, Chris.
yeah, yeah.
This is my point. He can't even say hello to me.
Mm. Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, who are you thinking you're more important than me?
Mm. Yeah, it was a shambles. That's what I mean. I don't really want to go back and watch that again, to be honest. So it just brings back bad
No,
memories.
no. Listen. So when you're a kid, Sunderland are a massive club, aren't they? I mean, John Byrne played for Sunderland in the '92 Cup final,
Mm.
and John Byrne is like a Brighton legend. So
Yeah,
it's always good to see a club like Sunderland, hopefully bounce back.
yeah. Big game tonight. To be fair, we've got Leeds tonight, so that
That's
should be
right.
a
Yeah.
fun one. So, but yeah, you say you're close to Dodsey. So Dodsey's been in, obviously won his game. against West Brom last game, so we'll see. Hopefully, he can pull another win out the bag tonight. So
Yeah, hopefully.
hopefully. So, just what I do like to ask people, Steve, that I have on. So, just kind of advice, really. So, you obviously you've given nuggets all the way through this, but in terms of someone that's kind of wanted to work in sport, whether that be as a coach or even an analyst or just in a sporting capacity, what would you say is a good piece of advice that you can give them?
People that are at uni,
Yeah, yeah, I've got a lot. Yeah, yeah.
uh,
For that.
well, I think the key to my skills, and this is not relevant to me, it's relevant to them, is go and work with kids,
Mm,
right? So if you go and work with kids, then you learn about society at mass level. Yeah, and I think that would be my huge bit of advice. I get loads of LinkedIn messages. What's your advice? What's your advice? Go and work in a school.
yeah,
Because by going working, honestly, I cannot describe the carnage in a school.
yeah,
And I call it mental agility, the ability to be mentally agile. And unfortunately, Chris, we've got lots of people that have a very narrow lens on the world.
yeah,
Yeah. I don't see the world how Chris Hughes sees the world, and he doesn't see the world how Steve Sallis sees the world. So if we can have those conversations more, and if we give love, we get love. If we give hate, we get hate. And we say, Chris, what's your lens on that situation on the football pitch? Well, I see this, Steve. Okay, what's your evidence, Chris? And you go, this, and this. Great. This is what I see. Okay. How are we then going to relay this to the players? So, I mean, I've really just probably nailed EQ, not IQ there.
yeah,
Having a genuine relationship with yourself where you're so self-aware that you communicate in a way which is kind and caring and respectful and not in a rude way to ex-pros that become managers.
yeah,
A lot of them have a consistent inability to communicate well under pressure.
mm, yeah.
I'm going to finish with this nugget.
Go for it.
IFI, impact, frequency, intent.
Hmm.
I tread on your toe on day one. You're like, oh, sorry, Chris, my bad, mate. It's Tuesday, I tread on it again. You're like, fucking hell, is he taking a piss out of me now? It's Wednesday. I tread on it for the third time. You're like, this guy's now taking a piss out of me.
Mm,
So if we keep treading on people's toes, from coach to analyst, in the end, the analyst is going to give up.
yeah, true.
And we've got to get analysts to want to work hard. We've got to get players to want to run around. We've got to get staff members to want to be vulnerable. So how do we get people to want to do things? And that's normally, from my experience, for being very kind and giving love.
Yeah, nice. Nice, good way to end, Steve. That's brilliant. I mean, I'm going to link your website below. I'm going to link your book below. Anything else you want to give a shout out to, Steve, while you've got people listening?
Yeah, mate. Just if people want the book, tell them to go to my website, not Amazon. Amazon takes 70%, the cheeky sods.
Really? Bloody hell.
Yeah, mate. And I sign every book
Oh,
if
nice.
they
Yeah.
if they buy it from my website. So yeah, that's with that. And then really, I hope that your listeners have got something out today, mate. And thank you to you for pestering me to get this done. I'm a busy man, but you've been brilliant, and I really wish you well with this podcast. It sounds like a great idea.
Nice, nice, Steve. Listen, I really appreciate your time. Thanks very much. Yeah, and I'll catch up with you soon.